with Manoj from iSpace. It was actually my first interview with a guest. Even though this episode is not too food related, though we do talk about mindful eating, it was just really nice to have an opportunity to interview him. He was leaving for New York in a couple of days, so I'm really grateful that he spared his busy time with us before he left. Every time I'm in his presence, I feel so calm and grounded. He is such a beautiful human being and so much wisdom to share. You might find his past experience quite interesting, and some of you might be able to relate quite a lot. Manoj is a co-founder of a meditation space in Melbourne and one of the most respected meditation teachers in Australia. I'd love to know what you thought of what he shared and tell us how you are practicing your mindfulness. Enjoy my conversation with Manoj, co-founder of iSpace. So if I was telling, someone about you, then I would probably say this amazing yoga teacher, meditation teacher.
Mm-hmm.
How do you describe yourself though?
Oh, that's a good question. I wouldn't describe myself as an amazing yoga teacher or meditation teacher. I'll probably just say I am just a human trying to do the best that I can with what I know.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes I don't like to label myself either. And when people say, "Oh, what do you do?" That's usually the first question that people ask.
Yeah.
But they don't say, what do you like, or what are you passionate about? Or,
yeah, what inspires you? Yeah. I feel like for many people these days, we're defined by what we do. And it's almost like that question, what do you do, enables you to understand someone without really getting to know them. If you're out at a party and you meet someone, you're like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, I'm a lawyer. All of a sudden there's connotations that come up into your mind.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the practice of meditation that I practice and teach is to let go of fixed ideas about things and people. So I think, that question is always a very interesting one whenever it comes up.
So when you go to a party or something,
yeah.
what's the first thing that you would ask people about? Start a conversation.
Question. Yeah, I definitely ask them what their name is and how they're feeling. What's exciting in their life at the moment.
Yeah.
I think in Australia I found it to be a really interesting question because people get a bit thrown by all of those things. We have a tendency to be very conservative in how we interact with new people, especially in social settings, and it's a very conservative approach to meeting people. Hi, what's your name? What do you do? Cool, are you having a good time? It's usually that following that train of thought. But I'm not really interested in what people do. For me, that doesn't actually mean too much at all. I'm really interested.
You anything.
I'm really interested in what gets people out of bed and what they're suffering with and what they're curious about. That tends to be the sort of things that prick up my ears.
Do you find it quite hard to get into that conversation though sometimes? Depending on who you're talking to as well, if you know that those people are open enough to be able to tell you, but sometimes you just get that feeling that maybe just going to be a shallow conversation about the weather.
No, I think it's interesting. The people that I do it quite often is because I struggle with small talk. It's probably the one thing that just really makes me want to leave a conversation if it's just not interesting. And I've always been like that as a child, so I've been pretty curious. I think if you give people a platform to be heard, and if they feel like you're genuinely interested, people will usually respond in a pretty good way.
Yeah. So what were you doing before? I know, were you always a meditation teacher as a child?
No. No. Do I look that calm? No. I, for very many years, probably about 10 years, was in marketing and advertising and finance.
Yeah.
So very much in the corporate space. It was my first job out of school, and I kind of, worked my way up in the finance industry, and I probably accidentally fell into teaching meditation and yoga because I had my own health issues, namely mental health issues. I had a lot of anxiety, had a lot of stress, that resulted in insomnia for me,
Was
an
it
eating
before?
disorder.
Is that before you got this job or got work?
No, it was probably during,
during.
I was in it for so long. It was probably during that I started to get pretty sick, and it definitely wasn't just the job that made me sick. It was obviously the things that I ate, the lifestyle that I led, and the choices that I made. I was working really long hours. I was partying a lot back then. I used to drink a lot with
How
my
old were you
friends.
then? Like in 20s?
Yeah, from about 20, 21 to like 27. It was pretty. It was a lot of fun, but I did a lot of that. No, I think balance is really important.
Yeah.
So I definitely don't regret any of the things that have happened in my life, but I've definitely learned from them.
Yeah. And what happened after that?
I got really sick, and I couldn't work for a long time. For about 18 months to 2 years, I didn't really work. And it was one day a friend kind of introduced me to yoga and meditation, and introduced me more specifically to a teacher that is amazing. He's he's my guru, and I still see him to this day. And he really introduced me to the practice of meditation.
Was he here in Australia?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he's actually based in Northcote. Actually, he travels the world now, but went to his tiny little studio and was practicing with him. And after the first class, I started to sleep better. And after like 6 months, I was practicing with him every day. After like 6 months, I didn't have to take any medication for any of the sicknesses that I was in. And after 8-9 months, I was like a whole different person. And just kept on going from there and there. And eventually, I fell into teaching. I started teaching just with him at his studio, and then did more formal studies. And
I was going to ask you that, because you can meditate and you can do your own practice and everything, but what made you want to become a teacher?
I think it's probably very similar to what a lot of other teachers experience, is that when you come out of a period of suffering, and it's almost like this thing that works. It's worked for you. And I remember I look back at a lot of my friends that were experiencing similar things, and all I wanted to teach them what to do was to how to meditate, and how to understand their thoughts, and how to observe their feelings. And that the motivation was, again, by accident. I had a girlfriend at the time who wanted to do teacher training. And I said, yoga, and I just said, okay, cool, I'll do it with you, just so we could do something fun. And then I think through that course, I started to realize that this was the path that I was meant to be on, and nothing felt as sure and as certain as my ability to give back to people.
So do you think you're living your purpose right now?
Absolutely,
I
definitely, I was a teacher for 8.5 years before I became an entrepreneur / business owner.
What do you mean with A-Space?
With A-Space, and A-Space is a whole different challenge. It's like you have a bricks and mortar business, you have staff, you have bills to pay, and so it's definitely not without its challenges. And there are some days that I hate it, but being a teacher, I love every day.
So you're going to New York, right? How do you feel? Because I think this place is kind of built on you as well. People know you and A-Space kind of together. How are you feeling about leaving this space? Do you think it's going to be okay without you?
That's a great question. I do. I spent a lot of time actually choosing my teachers really well, and from an early stage I knew that in order for A-Space to have the impact that I wanted it to have, that I know it can have, it can't be reliant on one person.
Just you,
because we never know what's going to happen to anyone, so I always wanted to pick really high quality teachers that had an impact, and I could make an impact, and then and trust them to do their job. And my co-founder Josh is amazing, and he's a wonderful wonderful human, and I know he'll manage things while I'm away, and
Yeah.
I've got a great support staff that will also assist.
And how do you feel about like just leaving Melbourne? And I know you have a daughter too, right? How old is she?
She just turned 17.
17, yeah. So she's kind of old enough to understand that. Yeah. And was she okay about you leaving, or did you have a conversation
she's really excited.
about it?
She's really excited because I might be buying her a ticket over to New York.
Excuse to go over to
No, she's at a wonderful age where she's really understanding, and if she was younger, I definitely wouldn't be leaving. But she's at a really mature place in her life, and we have an amazing relationship, and she's really, really excited.
Yeah. Is she a quite mindful person too, like you, or was she always, or did you kind of teach her? Like when she was born though, what were you doing then? Were you in the corporate or?
No, I was just out of high school.
High school?
Yeah, just out of high school. Yeah, me and her mother had her pretty early on.
Yeah.
And when she was born, she was amazing. Like, she came into my life. I know always. Every parent will say this, but definitely, it was very, very serendipitous her being born at the time that she was, and I think as I've seen her grow up, she's got a very deeply spiritual side to her.
Yeah.
At times, she doesn't understand where it comes from, but she definitely does, and she's definitely very conscientious, and she's a deep thinker, and she's very reflective. So. I think she's always had that, which has been beautiful.
Yeah. I wonder though sometimes, like, if seems like this generation, like the younger generations, they are a bit more conscious than I definitely used to be. They know like how life works a little bit more. It doesn't.
They're growing up so much quicker, for sure. Part of it is technology. They can connect and read and look up anything they want. Another part of it is just the rate in which we're as humans like evolving. They've almost had to grow up fast. I think the younger generation are being more connected to things that perhaps we weren't or exposed to.
So I kind of said mindful. And this is like the buzzwords at the moment: mindfulness, consciousness, that sort of thing. How do you like define it? What does that mean to you? Consciousness, mindfulness.
Yeah, it's almost like a word everyone uses now because it is the buzzword, and for me, especially the last 2 years, it's been about reclaiming what that word means. It's not about mindful beer drinking, for example, which I've seen like an event done around that. Mindful.
How does that work?
I don't know. And people, I think, are drawn to it because they think it's something spiritual and that experience something different. And I mean, it's great if the intention is to get people to be more aware and conscious of their beliefs and their tendencies and their habits. But for me, the word mindfulness comes in my tradition, the Buddhist tradition, from a very long line of practitioners and monks, and actually relates to a feeling. Feeling is probably not the right word. It's more, the original word for it was sati. Sati was the Pali word for it. And in some traditions, it's known as to become familiar with, which is a really beautiful interpretation of it, or to get to know, to understand. And I think that's really what mindfulness is. It's our ability to get to know, to get familiar with, to get to understand with our moment-to-moment experience. If that's our internal experience, so noticing all the thoughts or the feelings or the anxieties or the judgments that we have, or if it's to get to know, okay, there are so many other things going on around me that I'm not even aware of. There's another human being that's crying, but I'm in my own thoughts. I can't even see how upset they are. So I think the phrase of to get to know, to get to familiar with, to become familiar with, really speaks to me.
So that means that you can be mindful with everything, like every day, every actions you take. I mean, the clinical definition of mindfulness is to become aware of, or to pay attention of the present in the present moment with a non-judgmental attitude, and that's a pretty
it's a pretty cool way to explain it. It's like,
Yeah.
can we do things with a certain kind of attention, in which we're not lost and thinking about something else,
Yeah.
but in a manner that's kind and compassionate and attentive. And to that point, we can definitely do everything in a mindful way. But it's also more important to notice or to believe that, we don't have to be mindful every single second of the day. If we're waiting for a bus, if we're waiting for a train, we're not just going to sit there and stare at the clouds.
You can do that as well.
You can, you can do that if you want. But it's the difference is that when your mind is not here, your mind is not here. And when your mind is here, that is mindfulness.
What's the difference between mindfulness and meditation?
Oh, great question. We can be mindful in it. I kind of refer to mindfulness as having two applications, one with the eyes closed, one with the eyes open. The experience of closing the eyes and practicing mindfulness is sometimes referred to as meditation, a particular type of meditation. And that is, we become aware of what is occurring in the present moment with a certain kind of attention, and we might focus our attention on the breath or the sounds or the sensations, and then as it wanders away, wherever it wanders away to, we notice it's wandered away to a particular place and then bring it back. And that's one form of mindfulness meditation. And I want to make that really clear because there are many forms of mindfulness meditation. The eyes open experience for me is really why we practice the eyes closed experience. There's no point closing the eyes, sitting for 20 minutes and then being a jerk for the rest of the day. But the whole idea of being mindful in everyday life is so we can, when we're having conversations, be genuinely connected to someone in that moment. When we're eating our food, we're tasting the flavors, we're noticing the colors, not on our laptops or thinking about something else. When we're with our partners or our kids, we're really there. And for me, that's why I practice meditation. One part to liberate myself from all the suffering, which is a very Buddhisty term, but the other part is so I can be more aware and connected to everyday life.
So we just touched on mindful eating kind of thing. So how do you practice mindful eating, like, for you?
I think first for me, the big difference I noticed when I started to do it was that I became a lot less hungry. Because I wasn't, I used to eat my food at my desk when I was on my corporate job in front of a computer.
Did you just feel like you just didn't have time, or?
Yeah, for sure, didn't have time, but also like it was just a thing that you do. I saw food. I saw food as almost an interruption to my day, as opposed to like this beautiful experience that it is now. And for me, it all changed when I actually started to pay attention to how the food was making me feel. I had the worst diet back then. I'd eat burgers, fries, everything, and I didn't even think, but 2 hours later I'd just be like, I just
but you didn't connect.
Didn't feel great, and I started to pay attention to how does my body feel after each bite. And for example, I still have burgers, but I might not finish the whole thing because after 4 or 5 bites I'm like, I feel quite full. And also there wasn't an emotion making me eat, which again, back when I was really stressed and anxious, I feel like I'm wearing a little wig. Stressed and anxious, I would eat to numb the emotions that I was experiencing.
I think lots of people kind of go through that too, don't they? So you mentioned eating disorder. What was it like for you? Just not being able to eat, or just overeating? Or?
Yeah. It was not being able to eat, just not having any appetite at all, and then not being able to keep down food, and that didn't happen that often. Not being able to keep it down, but I just became really obsessed with exercising at one stage, and I just wasn't eating enough nutrients, and I got pretty scarily skinny. My mother had to come down from Hong Kong and spend some time with me looking after me somewhere else. And it was on the person that I had to be. It wasn't okay, at this moment, what do I need right now? And I think that was the biggest thing for me. But then as I started to calm my mind down, I started to get hungrier. And my teacher was wonderful for that. He always encouraged me to eat and to be around a community when I ate as well, because they were really beautiful times to eat and share jokes and laugh.
sharing a meal with someone.
Yeah. I think I've actually learned that I listen to my body a lot, but also I'm really addicted to certain foods. You know, like sugar for me for a long time was a big crutch. Really heavy carby food was a really big crutch. And I was saying to you before, like I had to do a cleanse very recently because my mind just wasn't functioning at its best. No matter how much meditation I did, it was actually masking the fact that my body just wasn't that great. You know, and I cut out all wheat, yeast, dairy, gluten, lots of sugars, and I started to feel amazing.
And at least I suppose because you've got a tool to be able to connect with your body too, so now you know what it feels like
exactly
after eating
right.
a certain food. I love the fact actually that you're running different workshops too. What made you decide to do those workshops especially?
You know, for me, I realized, and I think a lot of people do it in the West, is that they promote meditation as being the one thing that'll solve all your problems. And you know, I've been meditating for 10 plus years. My guru's an ex-monk. My family has, you know, meditated before. Like I grew up in this culture, and I can tell you, meditation isn't the silver bullet. It's one part of a conscious life. And for me, it's not so much that, you know, meditation will fix everything. It's that meditation is the foundation that will allow you to then have a conscious relationship. Meditation is the platform that will allow you to have a better relationship with food. Meditation is the platform that will allow you to, you know, experience anxiety and stress in a completely different way. But it's not necessarily what will fix it. And I think it's the basis of what will help. Because, you know, if our minds are calm and steady, our hearts are open, we can make better decisions, and that's just proven. You know, so that takes the practice of meditation and mindfulness. So that use the practices of meditation, but then, you know, who teaches us how to be in love? Like no one teaches us how to be in relationships. No one teaches us about creativity and meditation. What the connection
you still have to like live in this modern society, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so it's more about it's using meditation and mindfulness to create that stability of our minds, and then from there, using, you know, Western psychology and Buddhist philosophy, and seeing how can we then perceive the world in a different way. How can we be more compassionate and be more present and be more kind, and how can that enable us to have, you know, relationships that are more functioning, working interactions, and how can we relate to things like stress and anxiety.
So what's next for you in A-Space?
Some exciting things that I can't exactly speak about right now, but I'm heading to New York for about 4.5 months. I'll be developing some things for A-Space there, and maybe even doing 1 or 2 events. I haven't confirmed anything yet. But really for me, it's spending this time deepening my own practice and and bringing something back to Australia that would be amazing.
Are you thinking about opening another one in Australia, or Melbourne is enough, do you think?
No, we definitely have plans, and not to open just for the sake of opening. It's more so that if we feel like there's a genuine need for this in Sydney, then you know, maybe we'll go to Sydney. If there's a genuine need for this in Perth or another one in Melbourne, then we'll go there. It's really going to be based on the community coming to us as opposed to us.
And I was going to say, I think it's really nice to have a space that people just like go and get together, you know, with like-minded people, and even just dragging people who's never done meditation before. You know, it's hard to do it sometimes by yourself. It's always nice to do it with other people.
And that's how it was originally taught, you know, like in Buddhist teachings, which is my lineage. The Sangha, or the community, played such a big role in a person's awakening. And that's really what we want to create. We want to create conscious communities wherever we go.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's so lovely talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, good luck with everything with A-Space, and I will see you when you get back.
Thanks, Yoko. I'm going to miss your blue magic shakes. Thank you.
I know, I miss your presence. Thank you.
Thank you.